Welcome, everybody. Good evening, good afternoon. Thank you so much for being here tonight for the Dayenu Circle interest meeting. My name is Vicki Kaplan. I use she, her pronouns. I am joining you from Tongva land in Los Angeles, California. And I get to serve as the Director of Organizing at Dayenu, and I will be your host for tonight's Dayenu Circle interest meeting. This is a 1-hour meeting. And that song that welcomed us, I hope you got to roll your shoulders a little bit, settle in. That was an original song by Rena Branson that Rena wrote for Dayenu's Call for Songs in 2021. It's a new anthem for the Jewish climate movement. It is called Lador Vador, and you can find it in the Dayenu songbook, which we will share with you a little later this evening. So I hope you enjoyed that song by Rena Branson. I want to take a moment to introduce a few special guests here on the call tonight that are helping out with tonight's meeting. Maytal Gerson and Savannah Lipinski are both first-year rabbinical students. I think the first day of classes was yesterday at the Jewish Theological Seminary. And Maytal and Savannah are both organizing and leadership development fellows at Dayenu. And they each founded Dayenu circles in the Midwest before they started rabbinical school. We'll get to hear from them a little later this evening, and they're also here to help out tonight. And I'm also delighted to introduce Kathy Marshall. Kathy, are you here? I'm scrolling across to see if you're here. Say hi if you are. If not, Kathy will be joining in just a few minutes. Kathy is our guest speaker tonight. Kathy is the founder of the Temple Beth Emet Dayenu Circle in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And she'll be joining us in a few minutes to share a few words about what her experience has been like being in your shoes, thinking about starting a Dayenu Circle. And wherever you are, whatever you just came from, thank you for being here tonight. You are very welcome. I'm really grateful that you decided to check this out. Together, the Dayenu community is building a vibrant, growing, and bold Jewish climate movement. You're here tonight because you're interested in starting a Dayenu Circle. There are more than 80 active Dayenu Circles across the United States and Canada. And we hope that by the end of this hour together, you will be starting the next 10, 12 Dayenu Circles. And here's our agenda tonight. First, we're going to introduce ourselves and reflect on the stories that have led us here. Then I'll introduce Dayenu as an organization and an overview of what Dayenu circles are and the process for starting one. Oh, excuse me, we've split that around. After introductions, we're going to hear from Kathy first, her own testimony of being in your shoes, and then I'll give more of an overview of Dayenu and Dayenu circles. And then we'll have ample time for you to ask questions of Kathy, of Maytal, Savannah, and myself. And Maytal and Savannah will also share a little bit about how they started their Dayenu circles. I want to invite you now to grab anything that you need to make yourselves comfortable before we dive in. I recommend grabbing something to write with. If you're taking notes on a device or old-fashioned, this kind of device, pen and paper, grab something now to take your notes. And now I'd like to, for us to have a chance to get to know one another a bit. On the screen in a moment, you'll see a few prompts. Please take a moment to answer the first 2 questions here in the chat. And thank you, Steve and Judy, Francine, a few people who already introduced yourselves in the chat. Go ahead, everyone, do that now. And then take a couple minutes in your notebook to jot out your answers to the following 2 questions. I'll read them now. What motivates you to take action on the climate crisis? What relationships, places, or experiences brought you here? And why are you interested in taking action as part of a Jewish community? The first 2 questions share in the chat, and then the second 2 are just for journaling. And after we take a couple minutes here, I will invite 1 or 2 people to share what you jotted in your journal. Welcome, Helene. Good to see you. And Nate, Matthew, good to see you again. And Haley. Awesome. Hi, Judith in Albuquerque. The Southwest is coming in strong tonight. Awesome. Arizona, New Mexico. Hi, Sarah and Alex. I see you on the screen together there. Hi, Alana. I hope everyone's taking a moment to journal now. Start to wrap up your reflections. I'll share some of my thoughts on these questions, and then I'll invite one or two folks to share their answers. Hi, Judy. Welcome. Thanks for being here. Good to see you. And as much as a reminder for myself as anyone else, brevity is an art, and we have just an hour here together tonight. So let's each share for 30 seconds or a minute. As for myself, these two questions, I started working at Dayenu after almost 20 years as an organizer for environmental labor and social justice. But it was in 2020 that I decided that I wanted to focus the next 10 years of my life to meaningful climate action. And having mostly worked in secular movement spaces, it felt meaningful to me to organize within my Jewish community. And right after I started working at Dayenu, this was a few months into COVID, we had an extreme fire season here in Southern California, where I live. We were on lockdown because of COVID, and the only safe activity at that time really seemed to be going for a walk outside. But now the air quality was so poor that it was recommended that babies and older folks stay inside. And I had a 1.5-year-old child at the time. So here I am, I'm trying to raise a child to be Jewish. I'm trying to raise her in a climate change world. Like, what am I going to do about it? And in a nutshell, that's why I'm here this evening with all of you. So if you would like to share, please raise your hand using the Zoom reaction buttons, or like raise your physical hand and I will try to find you. And I'd love to hear from one or two people. Why are you here tonight? Why are you interested in starting a Dayenu Circle? And Savannah and Maytal, if you could help me, I'm having trouble like at not seeing everybody all at once. So seeing whose hands are up. Oh, there we go. Okay, Dorinda.
Hi, I could just go for a little bit. Just, why, like, if, what we say, if not now.
Oh, I can't hear you. You're not muted, but I still can't hear you for some reason, Dorinda.
Oh, can you
There
hear
you
me?
are. Yeah.
Okay. Just like, if not now, then when? And, it's like, this is like, there's no other time than now to do something that's meaningful. And also, like, it's like you, like, I'm struggling with, just all of the, like what you said, the fire seasons, the air quality, like we just need to do things where we can. And I also was like, what else can I do that's something that's meaningful? Because we all have, work and things, but like what if we can't have like wellness and safety, and for people like the climate injustice for a lot of people, it's just like, what can we do, like big or small, and together.
Thank you, Dorinda. And tell us again where you are.
I'm in Falls Church, Virginia,
Virginia.
and I'm a member at Temple Road of Shalom
Oh,
in
great.
Northern Virginia. And so,
Excellent.
and yeah, and thank you.
You should know that there is a strong and vibrant Dayenu circle at Temple Road of Shalom. So we'll make sure that you get connected. Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Dorinda. Judy.
Hi.
Hi.
I've done work, I'm a senior and I've done work for climate change for years on small levels, given money to every organization. And it's something that it doesn't leave me any day. I'm acutely aware of everything. Every article I read raises my little spiky hair. And I feel like I need to do something in a bigger way before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's about it.
Amen. Thank you, Judy.
Amen.
Thank you for being here. And I just want to ask for folks who like resonated with something that either Dorinda or Judy said, could you put like a star in the chat or another emoji in the chat, just to, if you resonated with something that Judy or Dorinda shared. Yeah, I think a lot of us, I like the smiley face. I think a lot of us feel our hair spiking when we experience climate disaster, or think about, with the little time that I have, what can I do, right? How can I make meaning? Thank you. Sue, I see your hand up as well. I'm gonna move on. We have Kathy here for a limited amount of time, but hope to hear from you later on in the meeting. Thank you, Sue. Wonderful. Well, thank you for those introductions. It's so important that we share our stories as organizers. It's part of how we learn about each other's values and how we learn what experiences we each individually and uniquely have, what resources we have, and organizing is actually how we organize those resources that this unique group of people have to build the power that we need to make the change that we want. That's what we're here to do, and that's why we always start with sharing stories, which is why I'm delighted to introduce Kathy Marshall, who is a absolutely powerhouse leader who founded the Temple Beth Emeth Dayenu Circle in Ann Arbor, Michigan, at her congregation. And Kathy has been organizing with Dayenu for a couple of years now, and also tonight is joining us on a quick break from an important board meeting. Kathy is on the board of her congregation, and they are discussing the congregation's climate action plan tonight. So we're going to make sure that Kathy gets out of here so she can go participate in that important board discussion. So thank you again, Kathy, for joining us, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Vicki. Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me tonight. So as Vicki mentioned, we just started up here at Temple Beth Emeth a couple of years ago. I personally was extremely worried about the climate and what was going on, and felt like this is the biggest crisis of our time. And, we need to do everything we can as individuals and as groups to, combat all the effects from climate change. I joined the Social Action Committee at my temple right when I joined the temple about 6 years ago. And, I noticed that there was nobody was doing anything on climate change. Just about every other topic, gun violence prevention and hunger and homelessness, et cetera, but there was nothing about climate change. And it just so happens that I saw a friend of mine posting about Dayenu on her Facebook feed. She said, hey, there's this brand new group, Dayenu, just starting up. Anybody in my circle that wants to get involved, it's a great group to get involved with. And so I went to our rabbi and I said, hey, what do you think about our starting a Dayenu circle? And he said, sure, are you willing to lead it? And then I said, well, let me talk to the Social Action Committee and see what they say. And I talked to them and they said, sure, are you willing to lead it? So it was clear that, just coming up with the great idea of starting a circle was not going to be enough, and that I needed to put myself in the position of leading it for it to happen. So I did, and I decided that I'm going to give this a good, couple of years, a good solid 2 years of plowing in is how I looked at it. I didn't think that this would, how sometimes in a nonprofit or in a synagogue, you get drafted to do something and then you never get off because you can never find somebody to take your place. Well, I kind of had an exit plan in mind, like right from the beginning. And, I just kind of took note of the people that were the most active, that came to all the meetings, that had a lot to contribute, the hard workers. And, about really a year ago almost, I started talking to them and saying, would you be interested in leading? And the person who ended up taking over from me in June was somebody who had never done this kind of work before, but he had been in our circle for, the 2 years that we had been in existence. And he really felt strongly about it. And he started out with like no experience doing this kind of work to now he's the leader of our Dayenu circle. And he's doing a fantastic job. So, I think that you don't have to be, the head of a nonprofit organization or tons of experience doing this kind of thing to lead a circle or even start one. I mean, what I did at the beginning is I kind of talked to a few of my friends and I said, hey, will you guys come to this first meeting that we're having? Because I have no idea how many people are going to show up, right? We announced it in our newsletter. It went out like 2 months ahead of time, repeatedly in the newsletter that, hey, this thing is starting. The first meeting is such and such a date, join if you can. But I still wasn't sure. I had no idea. Nobody RSVP'd. I just kind of thought, well, I'm going to wing it. Well, we had about, I can't remember if there were 15 or 20 people at that first meeting. I was shocked, but then again, I wasn't shocked. It was, it got a lot of promotion. The promotion person from our temple was really willing to keep putting it in the e-newsletter. I had talked to friends of mine, like I said, to come to the meeting just kind of for support in case nobody else showed up. And that worked. For us, it worked. So, I can say that, we went from, okay, so here's some really, some pictures. The one up on the top left is our Sukkot event. We did that after being in existence for about a year. We had an event at a local farm, and it was a picnic for the whole congregation. You see, we have the sukkah there, and the rabbi and the cantor came, and we had live music that was donated, and the farm was owned by a Jewish farmer who was giving us tours of his organic farm, where we talked about where we talked about local food and the importance of eating, all those kind of things wrapped into it. So that was that event. The picture next to it in the top right is actually, we are a building that houses our congregation and also an Episcopal congregation. So we co-own the building. It's kind of a unique ownership situation that we've got at our temple. It's owned by another entity called Genesis. But so that's wonderful. We have great partnership with the Episcopal Church, but it means that there's a whole nother level of board to go through to get things approved. So when we got our solar panels put up, it wasn't just the temple board saying, yay, let's do solar panels. It also had to go through the Episcopal Church's board and the Genesis board. So any kind of those building things have to get approved really by 3 different boards. Makes it a little more complicated. The bottom right-hand corner, that is at an event that we attended that actually Dayenu sponsored nationally. It was, Vicki, help me out. What was it called?
These were the Passover actions in 2022 for the All Our Might campaign calling, well, I'll let you tell them what this was about, but yeah.
Yeah. So all our might, and we were calling on banks that were part of the, what we call what Dayenu calls the Schmutzy Seven. The seven banks that invest the most amount of money in fossil fuels. We were calling on them to stop investing in fossil fuels and invest more in clean energy. So we, partnered with a bunch of different organizations to do that event. There it is. I think we had about 60 people at one point. The rabbi came, he played the guitar. It was great. We actually, did a letter. We handed it to the bank manager. So, I'd say so. Interestingly enough, Dayenu's main focus really is about political action. As a group. Our little group, when we got together and we said, okay, what's our agenda for the year? At first, people were very reluctant to get into the political action. They wanted to do workshops and give information and talk about composting and recycling, all wonderful things. But, the focus of Dayenu is really, this together, political action together, making an impact. And, we found a way to do both. We did a lot of the workshops and the events and the cleanups and the climate action Shabbat services and things like that. But we also did the actions like in front of the Chase Bank. And this past spring, I believe it was, we actually got our mayor, the mayor of Ann Arbor, to write a letter and Dayenu was really behind this, of trying to get people in, political positions to write letters in support of I believe it was the infrastructure plan. Was it, Vicki?
The Inflation Reduction Act.
Inflation, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So,
that's great.
So the mayor of Ann Arbor, we had already established a relationship with him, and so he, wrote a very personalized letter and submitted it for that cause, and we were happy that he was, that he joined us in that.
Beautiful. Kathy, if I can just jump in, I want to make sure we have time for folks to ask you a question or two before you have to head to your board meeting. Is that all right?
That's fine. I just want to say one other thing.
Please, yeah.
So one other thing that really helped us go from like a very small and fledgling group of kind of overworked volunteers to kind of a bigger organization is that we collaborated with other congregations. So, for example, we did a workshop series, 7 different workshops. We had 7 different congregations join us in those, co-sponsoring it. So even though we did most of the work for it, the other congregations all promoted it. So we had like 75 people register for all these different workshops. And it culminated in a teach-in that we had with, where the mayor was our keynote, a University of Michigan professor was another keynote. We had different workshops. We had, nonprofit booths. And that's the kind of thing most groups don't have the manpower to put those together. But it was the collaboration for us that really helped, working with other congregations that were willing to, each take part in it.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Kathy, for sharing your experience and how far you've come in just about 2 years or just under 2 years. Yeah. What a great example. Thank you. I see Sue has a question in the chat. Just how big is your congregation, Kathy?
We've got about 550 member families, so we're kind of medium size.
Mm-hmm. And we have a couple minutes for more questions. Feel free to type them in the chat or raise your physical hand or your Zoom hand, and I'll try and call on a couple people.
Well, I'm going to throw in a couple more pieces of advice then. Mm-hmm. So, if there are no other questions at this point, I think it's really important to find somebody who can help navigate the way through your temple's infrastructure to get things done. In other words, not everybody can just walk in and create a program for their temple and then just take off with it. You know, it needs to get promoted, and you need rooms to meet in. You need, you know, the infrastructure that the temple provides. And that wasn't so easy at the beginning. You know, you know, we were very fortunate to have our rabbi on board right from the beginning. And he helped like guide me toward, okay, here's who you need to talk to for this or for that, to line up, you know, this kind of thing or that kind of thing. And, you know, I would highly recommend doing that. You know, and I would also highly recommend, you know, inviting people that you know within the temple. It's not, you know, it's not so easy walking into that first meeting, even if you have an RSVP that you've done and not know what's going to happen. It really helps to have, you know, friends with you kind of.
Couple ringers,
at the beginning.
Let me ask you a question, Kathy. How did you, specifically, how did you invite those handful of friends? Did you call them? Did you text them? Did you see them in person?
Well, it was a combination. I did, I wrote a couple of emails. I texted a few. I saw a few at services here and there, that kind of thing.
Great. So I just want to emphasize there that Anya, or excuse me, I saw Anya just joined us from her kickoff meeting in North Carolina. So I had Anya on the mind. Welcome, Anya. Kathy met people where they were at. Like, didn't just send an email and expect people to show up, but actually really worked through her existing relationships and friendships, and made personal invitations and really met people where they're at. With our 2 minutes that we have you left, Kathy, here before we send you off to your board meeting, I see a question from Sue and a couple questions that I'll read out loud. Sue asks, did you collaborate with just Jewish congregations or other religions as well? Judy asks, how did you manage all the other congregations' involvement? It sounds overwhelming. Jay asks, does your circle have a stated goal or mission statement? And Sue asks, how do you explain the name Dayenu to those who ask? I stumbled over the tongue twister description. So feel free to try and answer as many of those as you can in your remaining time.
Okay, so the collaboration was a lot of work, but what we got out of it so made up for the amount of work that we put into it. So we never could have brought in 230 people on our own for this teaching. You know, that only happened because of that collaboration. And to answer Sue's question, it was other religions as well. So St. Clair's, who we share the building with, they were definitely on board. And, you know, we kind of put our feelers out to other congregations that either a rabbi knew or some of us had a friend there or something like that. So we kind of worked our networks to do that. And we had one person who was very dedicated to the collaborative part of the effort, and he kind of managed that. So that helped a lot too. Do we have a stated goal or mission statement? You know, we do not. And yeah, Dayenu is hard to explain, especially to people who are non-Jewish. But I mean, I basically just say, you know, we've had enough. We need to do something. This is the biggest crisis of our time. This is, you know, affecting all of our lives and our kids and our grandkids, you know, forever. And we got to take action. We don't really have a choice.
Thank you so much, Kathy. Everyone feel free to share some appreciation in the chat or just if you've got your video on. Thank you so much,
Sure.
Kathy, for taking the time.
And I'm just going to link before I leave, and I'll stop talking. I'm going to link to our website so you can kind of see some of the things that we worked on right when we got started.
Thank you so much, Kathy, for your leadership, and good luck at your meeting tonight. Wishing you chizuk, strength, and success. Great. Let's hear it for Kathy. Helpful to hear from someone who's been in your shoes 2 years ago. Yeah, right. Really grateful for her experience. And I hope that some of you might be in the position to share your experiences a few months from now or a year from now as well. I am going to share my screen again. And keep those questions coming. Feel free to put them in the chat or hold on to them for our Q&A session. And Maytal or Savannah might also be able to share answers in the chat as we go along. Can I get a thumbs up from Dorinda if you can see my screen? I can see you there. Yeah, great. Okay, excellent. So I want to tell you a little bit more about Dayenu, our story and our strategy. Tell you a little bit about the Dayenu Circle Network and what you'll be a part of when you join the Dayenu Circle Network, our principles, some tips for getting started, and then some upcoming actions and way to plug in, because starting with action is actually a great way to start. So to begin, consider this. American Jews, we consistently rank climate change in surveys and polls as one of our top voting issues. But as a national community, we really have not widely translated that concern into organized, meaningful action at the scale of our community's ability. And that means that we're maybe not living up to some of our purported values. And we want to change that. We want to enable a magnitude more members of Jewish communities in the United States to live our values through climate action. As such, Dayenu launched in April of 2020. We weren't planning on a pandemic. None of us were. But nonetheless, we pushed forward. And we launched with this mission: to secure a livable and sustainable world for all people for generations to come by building a multi-generational Jewish movement that is confronting the climate crisis with spiritual audacity and bold collective action. We do this work through 3 core pillars: bold action, movement building, and spiritual adaptation. By spiritual adaptation, we mean that we draw on Torah, on Jewish teaching, to anchor and nourish us as we take bold action and build a movement. And we have 4 elements of our strategy to help us achieve this mission. Our analysis at Dayenu is that to respond to the climate crisis at the scale that science and justice demand, we need a movement building strategy, and we need large scale change. We are aiming high. We can and should put solar roofs on every synagogue in America, and we work with allies who focus on that. But we recognize that that alone won't solve the climate crisis on the timeline we need to. So these are the 4 strategies that we use to advance the systemic large-scale change that we need. First, we support critical federal and state climate policies. We are so proud of the Dayenu Circle leaders who fought persistently since 2020 to win the United States' first ever federal climate legislation, the Inflation Reduction Act, which President Biden signed into law last year. Dayenu circles have also played helpful roles in state and local climate policy, lobbying their state legislators, participating in multi-faith or movement lobby days at their state capitals and city councils, and so on. Second part of our strategy, we mobilize the American Jewish community to act during key political and cultural moments. The passage of historic climate legislation, the Inflation Reduction Act, again, was one of those moments. And some of you might recall the accompanying fight to stop Senator Joe Manchin's dirty side deal. That was a major political moment, and Dayenu circles showed up and have played repeatedly meaningful roles in that sort of national political and cultural moment. Third, we engage with candidates in elections to change the political landscape. For 2 national federal election cycles in 2020 and 2022, we ran what we call the Chutzpah campaign. It's a national nonpartisan get out the vote campaign where more than 800 volunteers from around the country joined us every Tuesday and Thursday night to make phone calls to voters who care about the climate, don't usually vote, and in some cases are likely to be Jewish, and we help them make a plan to vote. We worked with a great partner organization, the Environmental Voter Project, on those campaigns, and we will be gearing up to run Chutzpah 2024 next year. And finally, our fourth strategy, and Kathy shared a little bit about this, that we are leading a multi-year campaign called All Our Might from the Wehrhafte to end financial backing for the fossil fuel industry. Right now, that campaign has entered a new phase where we're working closely with Jewish foundations, federations, and the major denominations to support them in having conversations with their asset managers about moving their money, their investments out of fossil fuel investments and into clean energy and other non-fossil fuel investments. So a little bit about Dayenu circles and the role that you play in those four strategies. Dayenu circles are rooted in your communities. You are the power and the motor of the Jewish climate movement. Each circle looks a little bit different because they're a product of the different community in which you are starting them. Think of a Dayenu circle as a flexible container or a home base for climate action with a Jewish voice in your community. Dayenu circles are rooted, as Kathy's example demonstrates, in congregations. They're also rooted on college campuses, at JCCs and JCRCs, within youth groups, in a neighborhood, or even a group of friends. Here is a map, admittedly a little bit of an old map, just demonstrating some of the breadth of Dayenu circles. There are now 82 active circles listed in the Dayenu Circle directory, where I hope to add many of you soon as well. But as you can see, I think there are Dayenu circles, I think at this point in 24, 25 states, plus Washington, DC and Canada. Let's see. Here's a picture from one of our actions in 2020. Senator Schumer actually attended this action, which was organized in part by leaders of the congregation that he attends in Brooklyn, New York. And this was part of the momentum that eventually led to the passage of the Inflation Reduction Act. Dayenu circles participate in national campaigns that Dayenu curates for you, such as the Hear the Call campaign, that was the photo I just shared, and the All Our Might campaign that Kathy described. And Dayenu circles, as Kathy also described, you have the ability and the sort of the autonomy to design your own local campaigns and actions in line with Dayenu's principles. Speaking of those principles, you can find those on our website at dayenu.org/principles. And I think we have 8 of them. And we've really found these to be helpful in guiding Dayenu circles to help you make decisions and choices within your circle on what local projects to take on. And this is also a great activity to do at a kickoff Dayenu circle meeting or a future meeting, to print out or have people pull up the dayenu.org/principles, and in pairs, in Chavruta, the traditional Jewish study pair pedagogy, to read and discuss your reflections on each of these principles. I'll read out 3 of them in particular. The first is that we're focused on systemic structural solutions to the climate crisis. Second, that we're committed to equity and justice. We know that the climate crisis exacerbates historical inequities like poverty and structural racism, even as the impacts of climate change spread to every corner of the world. Nobody is untouched. And we believe that the solutions to the crisis must center those who have been most impacted and, frankly, least responsible, and that we're called to pursue justice, Tirdof Tzedek. And third, we invest in partnerships. I saw that somebody put in the chat that they are already collaborating with Interfaith Power and Light in their state, a great partner at the national and local level for Dayenu. We do partner closely with other organizations within and beyond the Jewish community. You are free to affiliate with as a Dayenu circle or co-affiliate with movement partners like Interfaith Power and Light, Jewish Earth Alliance, the RAC, the Religious Action Center for Reform Judaism, Jewish Climate Action Network, Adama, and so on. These are some of our core partners. And a few pieces of how we support you. Sorry, just checking my notes for a second. So we offer trainings and briefings. Our director of campaigns and partnerships, Dahlia Rockowitz, hosts issue briefings. Our organizing team leads our signature Jewish climate organizing training called Taking Down Goliath, which has already trained, I think, over 350 people, primarily young people ages 18 to 32, but we've started to offer this 4-part training to intergenerational community. Rabbi Laura Bellows, our director of spiritual education and action, leads an amazing 2-hour workshop on Zoom and in person, and Dayenu circles are able to apply to bring Rabbi Laura to your community to lead this incredible experiential Jewish workshop. We curate days of action and provide toolkits for you to use. We will have one coming up this Hanukkah, so start thinking about Hanukkah as a time to plan an action to kick off your Dayenu circle. We offer coaching and support from our team, our small but mighty team of organizers and fellows. And we also offer free digital organizing tools that you can use to build your group, build your list, contact folks, etc. Not shown on the screen, but a couple new additions I want to highlight. We just launched the Dayenu songbook called Rising Tides, Rising Voices. And I believe Maytal put that in the chat earlier in the meeting. And you can also find that on the homepage of our website. For all of the musicians, or like me, I wish I was a musician, but I'm not, but I like to hang out with them. This is an amazing resource. It's really actually helped me to become more comfortable as a participant singer in community spaces. So just bringing, Jewish spirit and soul into our movement is so valuable to nourish us and keep us going for the long haul. And we also, this year, are piloting what we call Dayenu Action Funds, which is a small budget for Dayenu circles to apply to use to, for example, pay an honorarium to a BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, person of color, or frontline leader to come speak to your group. We want to be able to pay people, compensate them for their time. You can use that to purchase food for an event, or even to apply for a leadership opportunity for you or your co-leaders. So stay tuned for those as well. Oh, we heard from Kathy. Okay, I want to point you to a couple more resources, and then I'm going to hand it over to Maytal and Savannah to share a little of their experience, and then we'll just close with your questions. I realize that the reflection from the window in front of me is creating this cool, like David Bowie flash across my face. I kind of like it. So some tips for Dayenu circles. Check out our resources on our website, dayenu.org/circles. You'll see the directory there. You'll see resources such as more information on what is the Dayenu circle and why should I start one. An agenda for your first Dayenu circle meeting. Anya, who's here with us now, just used that agenda for a meeting with about 30 people in her living room, like living proof. It was so cool to see you in action there, Anya. We have some information about how to prioritize justice, equity, and inclusion in your Dayenu circle. You don't have to go it alone. We know that this is a priority for so many of us. And we want to work on that together and share our experiences and tips with you and for you to do the same. And then again, the Dayenu principles that I highlighted. So some tips for getting started. First, reflect on why you're feeling called and motivated in this moment. Practice your story, talk to your friends and family, those notes that you journaled at the beginning of this meeting, like keep refining those to tap into your story and help open up other people's stories for why they want to join you in action. Number 2, as Kathy shared, identify like a couple friends or co-leaders who might join you. You don't have to go this alone. Thirdly, plan a kickoff meeting or a first event. Your kickoff meeting can actually be a meeting using the agenda that we shared, or you could launch your Dayenu Circle by participating in one of our national actions, invite people out to that. And then your first meeting is like debriefing all those people, like getting people together to share some nosh, some food, and debrief how awesome that first action was. I have found that like doing action together is a way to build relationship. And then at any point in the process, you can email circles@dayenu.org to get added to the Dayenu Circle directory on our website and be officially listed as a Dayenu Circle. Circles@dayenu.org comes to the Dayenu organizing team. That's myself, Savannah and Maytal, as well as my colleagues Muriel, Sumner, Noah, and Zoe. So let us know when you're ready to start your Dayenu Circle, and shout out to the photo here. This is the Dayenu Circle in Eugene, Oregon. All right. The last thing I have, and then I really am going to turn it over, is upcoming opportunities for action. So again, diving into action and inviting people to join you in that is a great place to start. Tomorrow, Thursday, September 7th, at this same time, 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific, and this same place, Zoom, I will again be hosting another event. It is a sneak peek for Dayenu Circles and prospective Dayenu Circles at our new campaign. So I'm going to be giving you the inside scoop before anybody else gets the inside scoop about what this campaign is about and how you can get involved. I'll give you a hint. It's about making sure that the promise of the historic climate legislation that we helped pass is met, that promise is met, that the investments of the Inflation Reduction Act get to the communities that need them most, that we defend the good parts of that legislation from the persistent attacks on it, and that we tell the story of the impact of climate action, like we shout it from the rooftops, and that this is a down payment on future climate action. We're calling that campaign A Time to Build. We're launching it during Sukkot, when literally we get to building after this month of reflection, atonement, assessment, the month of Elul. Then we move into getting to work, into building, right? Into making that vision and those commitments that we have for the year real. So you can join the sneak peek tomorrow. You can invite friends and the people that you want to be part of your Dayenu Circle to the October 4th campaign kickoff. For our new campaign, that's open to everybody. And then, as I mentioned before, the Dayenu Songbook, you can download that. And I believe those links are being shared in the chat. With that, I want to thank you all again for coming tonight. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to invite Savannah and then Maytal to just share just a minute or a minute and a half about what motivated you to start a Dayenu Circle and tips you have for folks here. And then we'll hand it over to you all for questions.
Okay, hi, I'm Savannah. I use she, her pronouns. I'm currently located in New York City, attending the Jewish Theological Seminary, but my Dayenu Circle is in Madison, Wisconsin, where I was previously living. And I started my involvement in Dayenu actually back in 2020. I was doing a lot of civic engagement and social justice work at the University of Wisconsin and a lot of work with Hillel. And during that time, I actually noticed through a lot of relationships that I had that there was a demand for environmental justice programming. That sort of gave me the idea to reach out to Dayenu, and I connected with Sumner, who I think is the young people organizer for Dayenu, and kind of learned about what it would look like to bring a circle to Madison. Around the same time, some community members from the various synagogues in Madison had actually been working with Vicky through a mutual interest to start a Dayenu Circle, and I connected with them and initially sort of met one-on-one with these leaders from Madison by just getting coffee and sort of discussing what we hope to see out of our climate action and what we thought our community could benefit from having a Dayenu circle. And I think that the relationship building that I did with these other climate leaders was really foundational to both getting our Dayenu circle started and sort of figuring out what we could give to the Madison community, what we could offer climate action in the Jewish community in Madison. And we launched our Dayenu circle in November of 2021. And we started out with a small sort of steering committee of climate leaders from across all of the Madison synagogues and the University of Wisconsin. And I think one of our greatest strengths was that from the very beginning, we really leaned into the multi-generational aspect of Dayenu's mission. And I think that we had a lot of success bringing diversity into it from the get-go. So we built out from that circle. We were able to connect with leaders from all of the synagogues, from the University of Wisconsin, build out a huge group of students who are interested in this, and incorporate all of these community members to basically bring the resources and the strengths and the energy that they had to the events that we hosted. So we lobbied with Mark Pocan. We had voter registration events on campus where community members came and hosted a brunch and information session about Dayenu for students on campus, and really made Dayenu's work accessible to students who otherwise were disconnected from the community. And I think the three biggest takeaways from my work with Dayenu are that like relationships are foundational to this work. It is really worth meeting one-on-one with the people who are interested in this work and building personal relationships with them, get coffee, find out why people care about this, and connect them to the same values that Dayenu has, as well as building community. Some of our meetings didn't actually have to do specifically with Dayenu's actions. Sometimes it was talking about why we care about this as Jewish people, and that just helped build investment in the work that we were doing. So relationships are really foundational. Thinking outside the box, I know a lot of circles are building out of a specific synagogue congregation, a group that already exists. And I think one strength we had was that we really tapped into all of the different sort of corners of our community in Madison. And I think every single piece of that community brought benefit to our circle and what we were doing. And lastly, I think we leaned a lot on community partnerships. So that was kind of connecting with all of the different synagogues and connecting with work that was already being done in Madison to sort of show that we were there, we were doing the work, and that we were going to be people who would show up to a climate march, to a lobbying event, to a rally, and show that the Jewish community of Madison is really invested in this issue. And that's kind of the keys to our success.
Thank you so much, Savannah. And Maytal, take it away.
Hi, my name is Maytal, and so I'm also an organizing fellow and development fellow at Dayenu. I'm also a first-year rabbinical student at the Jewish Theological Seminary, and I first got involved with Dayenu through actually Dayenu's BIPOC interfaith organizing cohort that they did in 2022. And that really got me really passionate about kind of faith-based organizing, and also how much power communities had when we joined together to combat climate injustice. And so then later in 2022, I started the Chicago Eco Jews Dayenu Circle with a friend, and so I helped start that circle because I was really passionate about community organizing, and because I felt that there were so many groups of people in my life. So for example, for my synagogue communities, I was also very involved in social justice communities, Jewish social justice communities in Chicago, and even just friends that I've had really important conversations with they all shared common interests surrounding climate justice, kind of like what you guys all said today, that they saw this, what was happening to our world, and they just one needed community and kind of people to talk to about it, but also just wanted to commit to action because it was really scary to see this happening. So yeah, so I found that also I would not be I would not feel true to my Jewish values if I did not act on climate justice. And also that the Jewish ritual, community, and spirituality gave me strength that Dayenu kind of brings to the table, gave me strength to do this work and to work with the community. I think climate organizing can be really exhausting, as many of you know, and also scary. And so it really gave me a loving community to fall back on. So my favorite part of being a Dayenu Circle leader was building one-on-one relationships, kind of just like what Savannah was saying. So I really love building relationships with individuals and learning about people's different passions surrounding climate justice. So a lot of people wanted to learn more about the environment in the city. And so some of our most successful events were an Eco Shabbat, where we brought some of our leaders to share Jewish learning. We did a beach cleanup and picnic organized by another member, where we learned about the local vegetation around Lake Michigan. And then we had our launch party at the base Hillel in Lincoln Park. And we started in 2022. So we were, by the time I left, because I'm just moved to New York from Chicago. But so when I was leaving, we were starting to build those community partnerships that actually Savannah was talking about, that had happened so successfully with her Dayenu Circle. So we were talking with some of the shops, like the compost organizations around the city to do some community learning. And we were talking to some of the climate organizers from Sunrise and from other groups to see where we would be helpful and just kind of take the lead from our members to push this work forward. So yeah, I think that if you were to take one thing, or if I were to learn from starting a Dayenu Circle, the most important thing for me was to build relationships with people, to gain knowledge about where they are, what connections, who they're connected to, and what they bring to the table, and also learn more about what groups and resources we have at our disposal. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Maytal. Yeah, give it up for Maytal and Savannah. It's so awesome to have experienced Dayenu Circle leaders now as fellows in the organization. And you all here tonight will have an opportunity from now through May of next year, right? We have the whole school year, and Maytal and Savannah will be part of the team here to support you. So as next steps from tonight, if you're ready to kick off your circle, you want to be listed in the directory, send an email to circles@dayenu.org, and Savannah or Maytal or one of us will get back to you. Send any questions our way. We're all going to be following up with each of you as well with next steps. And recognizing that we're at the top of the hour and haven't actually gotten to the second round of Q&A, I am able to stick around for 15 more minutes if you are, and answer your questions. But I also want to, as our colleague Muriel says, bless and release. If you need to go because we're at the top of the hour, go right ahead and we will find time to connect with you and answer your questions and help you get started. Thank you, Anya, but please stick around and I'm happy to answer more questions. Judy, I'm answering your question right now. Judy, are you still here? Yes, Judy, hi. Thank you. Yes, the fact that Dayenu launched during the pandemic meant that the first 2 years of our organization, like everything we were doing, was online. So we've gotten very good at taking effective action online. Some of the examples of actions that circles have led and taken online that have been particularly impactful or meaningful include district meetings with your member of Congress or your state legislators, on
Online, you mean?
yeah,
Have it-
online. A lot of offices now are holding most of their constituent meetings over Zoom.
Some district meetings, say that one more time.
Over Zoom. Yeah.
No, that, the district meeting with whom?
Oh, with your member of Congress or your state legislators, and particularly in New York, we are going to be working on some state bills in the new legislative session starting in January of 2024. So for you and other members of your online circle to identify who are our state senators, our state representatives, how have they voted on similar bills in the past, and then email their offices and say, we've got 10 members of Central Synagogue in your district. We'd love to have a meeting with you and let you know, our stance on this bill that you're voting on. They will take that meeting. They will do it on Zoom. You can even take, like, we're going to take a group photo and do a screenshot. You can share that out on social media. Like, there's a lot you can do from home and online.
Okay.
Also, the Chutzpah 2024 campaign, which is our nonpartisan Get Out the Vote campaign that will be kicking off next summer. That has also been mostly online. We make calls from home using some great technology, and we train you up with our partners at Environmental Voter Project. So that's another great activity. Writing poetry, making art, and sharing that. So much can be done virtually. And then for individual members who do want to participate in sort of offline actions like a rally or a march or a protest or a Hanukkah candle lighting, in Prospect Park or something like that, they can show up to those kinds of actions that other people are leading on.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you,
I'll
Judy.
get back to you.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks for your patience as well. I know you've had a set of questions. It's nice to get to connect with you. Hit me with some other questions, please, in the chat, or raise your hand. I'll call on you. You can unmute. At some point, my doorbell is going to ring and my 4-year-old will come home, so she might join us, but she's used to it. I sing that opening song we played, L'Ador Vador. I sing that to her as a bedtime story, so maybe she'll do a rendition for us. Mike.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, I'm zooming in from New York. And I have an interesting story to tell because we did a proposal for a local synagogue in Westchester County. So this might really be relevant for anyone in New York, especially Westchester. So we're trying to get solar on all of the nonprofits, especially synagogues, even churches and temples throughout Westchester, because there are incredible incentives and rebates available.
Yeah.
So I just want to give you a case study in 2 seconds, and then if this makes sense, we'd love to spread the word. So this synagogue has 3 structures. It was a $350,000 system, and they're getting $300,000 back in rebates up front from the federal government and the state government. And they're going to save $2 million over the lifetime of the system. So this is just a remarkable period in time for especially nonprofits and synagogues and churches to take advantage of going green. So I'm out on the highest mountaintop, just trying to educate and let people know about these programs.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Mike, for that work. It's so crucial right now. It has always been crucial, and even more so now that we have these huge funds through the Inflation Reduction Act and the bipartisan infrastructure bill. It actually becomes like demonstrating that there's a need for those funds and they're being quickly used helps to like build confidence in future action like that. So while that is not like the solar roofs on synagogues is not a campaign that Dayenu is running right now, our partners at Adama in New York, I know, are gearing up to coordinate congregations in New York on that. So make sure you're in touch with them. And as if you can join our new campaign sneak peek tomorrow or the kickoff on October 4th, you'll hear that we are calling on everybody to organize during Hanukkah public menorah lighting ceremonies and imagine like one candle being lit by each congregation that is applying for funds to put solar panels on their congregation, or one candle being lit by a state representative or state senator who's sponsoring a bill that you support, or a community
Right.
partner that's saying we need to make sure that these funds get to our communities too, and that, you know, local Jewish news covers that, secular news covers it, and then through that more people actually learn about these opportunities. So these public actions can also help build support for the kinds of solutions that you're pointing to, Mike. So thank you for sharing that.
Great.
Yeah.
Sure.
Great work.
And if anyone wants to follow up with me, they can go to justgo.solar.
Nice. Thank you. Great. Who else
Thanks
has a
for doing this.
question? And Maytal and Savannah, I know that we have gone over time and you might have studies to get to, so feel free. You are also blessed and released if you've got to go. Yeah, go ahead, Dorinda.
I know this is not, it's off of the topic of Dayenu, but it's not. Just something I wanted to share. So I'm a veteran also, and I just was struggling like with your message, like why and when, and you know, it's we all are multitasking or in our heads, and I might not have said exactly what I wanted to say. I, as reaching out with people, I remember like saying, like, you know, years ago, like, you know, with the wildfires and the sky, I'm like, I could detect like if the sky was, you know, like the air quality was bad before other people. I'm like, it's the wildfires. I'm in Virginia. And I'm like from California, and I remember just feeling really alone a few years ago. They're in California. Like you talk about that, you know. I'm like, yeah, the airstream and the just being so aware, and it's like eerie, and you know, this it's sad and scary, and it, you know, how many days do we have to spend inside for the air quality? And I'm lucky I live in a shady area and other people don't. But I remember just with all of COVID and everything that's going on in the political, I had 3 people in 1 week that I was like, you know, don't you like, I just asked random people, like, I think I have climate anxiety. This was like 3 years ago. I have, you know, I have my own, you know, anxiety and it's like, it's called eco anxiety. And I remember people saying, like, you know, not really knowing what it is. And I actually, after the Capitol riot, I remember being like, oh my gosh, this is too much, like all over. And so 3 of my good friends said, maybe like you should get help. And I remember I finally got connected with a psychiatrist or psychologist, and I was explaining, I'm like, you know, what I'm feeling is, this isn't like an irrational thing. This is like real. And I remember saying, you know, like they didn't, now I know that there's more, you know, awareness, but just I remember 3 years ago, people were like not really understanding. I'm like, you know, and so what are things that we can do to help with that is to take action or to connect with people who are like, you know, so. And I just remember back then, she's like, so do you want a prescription? I'm like, no, I just, you know, that's not, I'm like, but this is a rational thing. Like so I just, you know,
Absolutely.
like that was one thing, like just kind of taking the temperature, the pulse about people. And I felt really relieved when I started finding people like us, like other, you know, to unite and to be strong together. And I'm so hopeful and just want to continue. Thank you. And I think my time's up. My kiddos came in.
Thank you so much, Dorinda, for sharing that. And it's not tangential to Dayenu. It's absolutely core to what we're here to do as a community. And the workshop that Rabbi Laura Bellows and her team leads, you kind of like described it perfectly, that like we recognize and we honor the grief. We envision what a positive future can be. And by honoring and envisioning, we can move into action. And it's actually through action that we find hope and resilience and community, et cetera. So thank you. Yeah, right there with you. Francine, I see your hand up. Go ahead if you can.
Yeah,
unmute.
hi. Hi, can you hear me now?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah?
Yes.
Okay, hi. So I put this in the chat. I'm new to this organization and really to organizing it all. But I like the mission and the principles and values. But when we engage with politicians or with potential voters, how do we introduce ourselves in such a way that it's clear that we're not trying to proselytize or product or get them to adopt our religious
Got you. Yes, I saw
you
your
know,
question earlier
yeah.
about separation of church and state. Is
Yeah,
that-
yeah.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, thank you for typing that and lifting that up here.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many ways I feel like I could answer this question. We are bringing our Jewish values, and those are motivating us to desire a livable present and future for all people. And by demonstrating and by stating that we are motivated by our Jewish values and we're asking you to do X, in no way is that proselytizing. That is no different than saying, as a mom, I feel committed to create a healthy future for my child.
Okay.
Yeah.
But do
That's
you find that we need to assure people of that? Because, like if somebody came to me and said, that it was from their Christian values,
Yeah.
I might, shrink back unless it was like maybe Jimmy Carter, because he, was pretty good at separating. But, anybody.
Yeah, I got
close
you.
to me.
I might have a similar reaction, right? Because I think there's actually, in a Christian hegemonic society in which we are living, there's like a lot of power connoted and communicated through use of certain terms like that. So in some ways, I see by saying, like I have found by saying, I'm doing this motivated from how I was raised as a Jew or Jewish values or Jewish teachings, that helps me actually like kind of reclaim in a way my version of what I think we can be as a powerful community and not take someone else's definition of that. But I do think it comes off differently than saying my Christian values say because of the Christian hegemonic society that we live in. That's one thing. You can tell I have a lot I could say about this. The other is to say that places of worship are 501c3, like nonprofit status, right? 501c3s are able to do a certain amount of lobbying. It's a small amount, but like our tax structure says that we can advocate not for candidates, but we can say, here are things that we care about to legislators. And actually the fact that Dayenu's Get Out the Vote campaign is an explicitly nonpartisan campaign has allowed many congregations to sign on and say, we're going to encourage our congregants to participate in this because we're not telling people to vote for a certain party or a certain candidate. We're asking, do you have a plan to vote? Yeah, so a lot more we could say about this, but I'll end in saying, Francine, that it has not been actually a question that I've heard come up until you've asked it right now, which is
I'm surprised.
Yeah.
I'm surprised, but if you could, I don't know, follow up with any information about the 501c3 thing and how it's allowing congregations to do a certain amount of lobbying, that would be, I really appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you. I do have a
And,
resource I
meanwhile,
can share, and would just ask you,
Yeah.
Francine, if you could email circles@dayenu.org. That will more guarantee that I'll send you that resource, but I do have a PDF that I know I can send you.
Okay, well, right now I've just got this huge migraine, so and I
Gosh,
think
not
it's
now.
weather
Yeah,
induced.
yeah.
Yeah, I think it's
Okay,
climate
thank you.
change induced. So I'll try to remember to do that. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for the question, Francine. And feel better.
Bye. Thank you.
Take care of yourself. Yep. I heard my kiddo entering the house, so I'm gonna have to wrap up soon. Judith, Marcia, good to see you again. Judith is the one person, Judith and Marcia, I think are the people whose questions I haven't heard or answered yet. So let's take those quickly, and then we'll say goodnight. Judith, if you have a question. And if not, that's okay. Or Marcia? Okay, I think I will wrap us up here. Thank you all for the extra time. Thank you, Maytal, and thank you, Savannah. And wonderful to be with you all. We look forward to the next steps. Good night and Shana Tova.